Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FEMIN-ICT Role Models Collection interview series. Thank you for joining us today. FEMIN-ICT is a project that seeks to increase women's visibility and empowerment in the ICT and digital economy, driving in this way economic growth and wider social progress. My name is Magda Bakali, and I work for Stimuli for Social Change. We're based in Thessaloniki, Greece, and I will be the interviewer today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you the woman whose background and career we're celebrating today with this interview. Nura, the floor is yours. I'm going to start with the first question. Could you please briefly introduce yourself and your journey in the ICT sector? What motivated you to pursue a career in this field?
Definitely. So I'll start out with my name. My name is Nura Mahmod. I am 35 years old and I work at Neodev in Malmö. Neodev is a consultant company within software engineering. So I've been here for 6.5 years, and we basically work with everything from web development to embedded systems and AI. I would say that I actually slipped into this business, this industry, and I think the thrill of being challenged was actually my motivation. I previously studied biomedicine in Lund and then business in Malmö, so relatively far from the tech industry. But because I had previous experience within consulting, that's basically how I got here. And it's been a fantastic journey. The company is pretty small, so it's run mostly by me and our CEO. I do want to say, though, for the sake of this conversation, that I have been working in male-dominated fields most of my career, and I would say they don't differ that much from each other. I actually started my career when I was 19 as a managing director for a taxi company, which is a very long story. But as I said, for the sake of this conversation, I just wanted to point out that, yeah, the past 6.5, 7 years have been in this field specifically male-dominated, but I have almost 16 years behind me of a heavily male-dominated field.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. I would love to hear your views later on.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my second question. As a woman in traditionally male-dominated industry, you said you have long experience in that. Would you like to tell us what challenges have you faced throughout your career and how did you overcome them?
It's a good question. Sometimes I think, have I overcome them? And I'm not so sure, but I would say the regular challenges, both past and present, are mostly the standard challenges of microaggressions coming from men. Those have been present throughout my career, right? And domination techniques. In the beginning, I naively thought it was about my young age, and I was so looking forward to getting older because I thought things would change. But the older I grew, the more I realized nothing was changing, right? So I would say the male-dominated fields are highly problematic because you get kind of used almost to being interrupted, being overlooked, being overtalked, having your opinions be minimized, not getting your ideas through, sometimes or many times noticing the difference between you coming forth with an idea and then your male counterpart coming forth with the same idea, and how different it is, the response can be, right? So you kind of are made to feel invisible and not included sometimes. And actually, another example is not long ago, a man came up to me and flat out asked me if I was an assistant at Neodev, assuming before asking. Now I'm a manager at Neodev. And I would make the assumption that there is probably not many white men that have been asked that same question. Right? Not many times it's not often that they are assumed to be an assistant. And I also want to point out that I'm a non-ethnic Swede who has lived here my whole life, and I'm also a Muslim. So I've had to endure inequality and racism and Islamophobia at the same time. And intersectionality brings forth I would say, an even greater challenge, and is, of course, or has been and is, a point of frustration for me. Even today we many times prefer polarization over nuance, but to the point of how I've overcome them. I would say that I've had the natural drive in me to kind of fight against the status quo. So I've forced my way into rooms where my presence didn't seem welcome because I believed in my competence. And as I've kind of tried to overcome these obstacles, I've tried to also recruit people to the companies where I've worked that have the same mindset, that care about sustainability, that care about inclusion and diversity and equality, and in that way kind of get force from the masses, right? It's very hard to drive this change just by yourself. And that also makes it easier to have all of the uncomfortable conversations that I've had to have and share my story with peers. And that has also not been easy because, you know, working in a male-dominated field, it often fosters the imposter syndrome. So you have to overcome your own insecurities while you're being made to feel less than by your surroundings. So, I mean, it's very hard work. But I think, as I said, kind of finding your tribe, and maybe my my way of overcoming has also been to surround myself with other women from the field, getting a mentor, you know, kind of trying to make a safe space for myself in my personal network.
Thank you for sharing all the very interesting thoughts. I'm going to continue with the next question. I would like to know what notable accomplishments or projects have you been involved in within the ICT sector, and how do you feel they have made a positive impact?
Well, I think we actually got connected because of one of the initiatives that I've been part of, or a product that I'm developing. So a couple of years ago, some of my colleagues and we were part of a hackathon promoting AI and gender equality. And we won that hackathon with our idea Equalizer. And it's an AI-driven meeting moderator that visualizes unequal meetings in real time, so in both digital and physical meetings. And it does give workplaces a great tool to actively work with DE&I. And the goal is to minimize the amount of microaggressions by visualizing them. So I'm the team lead and project manager for Equalizer. And I think because of that, I've had the chance to talk about it in many arenas and many forums. And I would say, because it's not on the market yet, it's hard to say what difference it would actually make once it does hit the market. But what it's already done is that it's created this new way of like verbalizing these microaggressions that a lot of women face. So I had the chance to talk to so many women and minorities who feel so connected to the product and the problem statement. And that has been fantastic to actually be able to sit and talk about these challenges openly. And we've also got the chance to talk to the people that oppose the product, who oftentimes are men, and who oftentimes are pretty aggressive maybe in their approach to women and sustainability or inclusion and diversity and such. So yeah, it's been a fantastic tool to discuss the underlying problem. And I think once it hits the market, it might make a huge difference. So that is what might be a bit more notable outside of my workplace. But at my workplace, I would say that I've pushed the sustainability agenda a lot, been training our board and our colleagues about the global challenges and, you know, our responsibility as a company, which sure has been difficult at times, but the result is now that we have a company to be very proud of. Our gender and ethnic diversity has improved. It's not great yet. We still have a way to go, but the results are already really good. Like, we are more profitable, we are more innovative, we are more productive, and we are more inclusive. So yeah, I'm really happy about that.
So great. So both one product, it's called Equalizer, right?
Equalizer,
yeah, great. And then your impact in gender and ethnic diversity in your company. That's amazing. Yeah. So in your opinion, what are the key opportunities and advancements in the ICT sector that can drive positive change in society?
Well, I've worked a lot with AI the past years at Neodev. So I would say that that would be my answer. It's like AI is so diverse, and it can be used in a plethora of industries and fields, which kind of is what makes it exciting, right? You can work in pharma and be a machine learning developer, and you can work in education and be a data scientist, or you can work for big scale production industry and be a robotics engineer. So it's pretty incredible what you can do. Although we do have a lot of challenges within AI still to overcome. I think understanding our data and that it can be biased, and how to make sure that we create solutions which are inclusive, those are all keys to actually having a healthy advancement. I think we need to recruit diversely. I think we need to make sure that we have the appropriate data for the product we're developing, and we need to test it out on a broad demographic. So I think if we have these keystones, I do believe that AI can bring forth products that absolutely can increase our well-being and efficiency. But I'm sorry to say to all the techies, the key opportunity does not lie in the technology, and 100% lies in the people developing it. So I think given the right parameters, we can definitely see it as a key opportunity and a huge possibility for advancement.
Great. So you've talked a lot about diversity and inclusion. So how important is diversity and inclusion in the ICT industry, and what steps can be taken to encourage more women like you to enter and thrive in this field, and hopefully so passionate?
Well, I think we are a very tech-based, tech-dependent world. I don't want to say that diversity and inclusion is more important in our industry than any other, but seeing how it's such a huge part of our life, I kind of do feel like it, because today AI can decide if you get a loan for your house. It can decide if you have melanoma. It can decide if you get a job, and so many more areas that are very decisive for your future and can greatly impact your opportunities in life. So I think that without a diverse team and without inclusion, we're not just losing the possibilities of innovation and financial growth, we are literally risking lives and livelihood. So I know it might sound dramatic, but it's actually the reality. So I think we must be creative and active in promoting this industry from a very young age to women, showing the diversity of the industry, the options we have, the many industries you can work within, and also, like, once we actually get women into this field, cherish them, listen to them, lift them up, include them, make sure you create an inclusive environment, so you set a high standard so they don't want to change workplace. I was actually reading a report the other week from Teknikvinnor, which is, I think it's Sweden's biggest network for women and non-binary people within tech. And the report showed that 75% of participants, they stated that a lack of engagement within diversity, equity, and inclusion is enough for them to want to change the workplace. So that's a huge number, and we already have a deficit in women in our business. We cannot afford to lose anymore.
75%. Wow. And can you share any advice or lessons? I mean, you've shared a lot of lessons, but any specific advice you would like to share from your experience that will benefit aspiring women professionals in the ICT sector?
Yeah, I think I'm sure I have a lot of advice. The playbook is very unclear, right? The situations can differ very much from workplace to workplace, but I felt that my instinctive answer was like grit and stamina, but I don't think that's a healthy way of thinking, right? It might burn you out very quickly. So some other advice might be, be careful and take care of your mental health first. Dealing with microaggressions and inequality on a regular basis can be very, very exhausting, and can take a lot of energy out of you. Sometimes you might be the first woman in your team. Sometimes you might be the only woman in the company. It's very easy to fall into like small traps, even of old gender roles. Try to like avoid gender roles at any cost. This might seem futile, but don't fill the dishwasher or empty the dishwasher more than anyone else at your workplace. And don't take notes for everyone else at the meeting. Again, it might seem futile, but these small things actually take a lot of your energy. So for many years, I actually refused to bring a notebook or computer with me to meetings. Naturally, I couldn't be the one taking notes, right? But I didn't even want to make the chance. I've also learned a lot to communicate, and when to help and when not to help, and how to set my boundaries. If someone needs help, you can't say no. You can say that you would love to help next time, but right now you are focused on your project. You don't have time. So don't drop everything, to answer immediately or to help immediately, because that is the imposter syndrome taking over, right? So I think that's also important, to bring some self-awareness, like try to be self-aware. I also think that if you find yourself in a workplace where there are discussions about DE&I, and you feel you want to involve yourself, I would say involve yourself as much as you can and want and have the energy to. It is not just women's responsibility to better the workplace. It is everyone's. So don't take it upon yourself to create the change if you're screaming into a void. Like, men need to be part of the conversation and lead it as much as us as well.
Thank you for very hands-on advice. That's great. I think it can be applied in other workplaces too.
Yeah.
Definitely. So my next question is about what initiatives or programs do you think are essential for promoting gender equality and empowering women in the ICT industry?
I think, as so many other movements, change usually starts from the bottom instead of from the top. I think that the change has to start from the top. The government does have a responsibility to create national initiatives that promote the industry for women and for minorities, and that kind of forces change on companies that have no sustainability work or DE&I work. In Sweden, we do have a legislated sustainability reporting. I think that is EU legislated even for bigger companies, but I don't believe that's enough. Then of course, you have company leaders, management that should make sure that their board is equal, that management is equal and diverse, and mirror the demographic. But I think right now the most essential programs and initiatives come from private actors that are constantly fighting for a change. And I think that they are the ones that right now are creating a safe space for women and non-binary people to kind of share and develop. And I would recommend anyone to find the community or join a group that specifically focus on that in tech. The bigger these initiatives get, the more clear the problem. But unfortunately, I think it comes from the bottom up, not from the top.
Thank you. So I'm going to move to a different subject now. How do you balance work and personal life in a demanding field like ICT? Do you have any strategies or tips? You talked earlier about mental health for achieving a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah. Well, I have struggled a lot with this in this field. I would say that if you can afford it, or if your company provides it, go see a therapist. It's a fantastic outlet and can give you tools for handling a demanding workplace, and tools for setting boundaries, and tools for communication. My mother always tells me to put my own oxygen mask on first. And I think that's a very good mantra to have when you sometimes maybe are very lonely in your experience or alone in your company. And then let go of phones and emails when you're not getting paid. Women already do 75% of the unpaid work in the household, which is 3 times more than men. So don't work for free for your employer as well. Maybe find some ways to get creative in your time. It can be anything. I think creative outlets are very, very healthy and important. It can be, if you like cooking or drawing, or I don't know, anything creative that basically shuts down work. or just sitting outside looking out through your window for a while.
Mm.
But I think mostly for me, it's been healthy to sit and vent. If it's with a therapist or a friend or someone you trust or a colleague, just don't hold things in too much. Don't put it all on your shoulders. So that, I think that balances you out a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So my next question is a bit related to what you have discussed already, but if you have anything else to share, if there are any particular trends or emerging technologies within the ICT sector that you find exciting or believe will have a significant impact in the future. You talked about AI, if there's anything else you would like to share, please do so.
I would say that's it, right? Generative
Mm-hmm.
AI in particular. I think we're scratching the surface right now with text and images. I think it will take over several industries. It might seem a bit scary with the risk of a huge job loss, but if we focus on reskilling people, I think we would be fine. And I do think that most of the change will be beneficial if done right. So we can provide a better healthcare, industries, infrastructure, healthier planet, hopefully as well.
Thanks. So I'm going to move to our last question for today. It's been great. Who are some of your role models or sources of inspiration in the ICT industry in your national context or internationally, and how have they influenced your career?
Well, I've had a pretty diverse career myself, so I wouldn't say that there has been one woman in ICT that has made me feel like, oh, I have to pursue a career in that. But I think there have been many women throughout my life who have affected me in many ways. Like, I've grown up during the third and fourth wave feminism. So a lot of strong women emerged in these times, right? And everyone from my own mother to my female colleagues today that, you know, inspire and challenge me to keep working hard for cultural change. They definitely inspire me a lot. And I've been reading a lot of Brené Brown lately, talking about leadership and vulnerability, and I can relate a lot to that because sometimes I want to see authentic leaders. Like, you can be a woman and a leader, and you can be a minority and a leader. And in many cases, I feel like people try to, if you're people of color, you try to be more white, or if you're female, you try to be more male, and you get out more masculine energy instead of like embracing whatever you feel you are, like whatever is your true self. So I think a lot of people and influential leaders that have shown me this kind of leadership have been my role model. It's hard to say just a few ones, but I definitely, a lot of strong women have paved the way for me and many others. So they've been leading by example, and it's inspirational.
Thank you very much, Nura. I also believe in living by example. And thank you for the very, very inspiring interview and for your time. Thank you everyone for watching. Please follow our FEMIN-ICT interview series. You can find our interviews on our website, FEMIN-ICT EU project. You can also follow us on social media on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find out more about this project. Thank you for watching.